Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, the Kevin Durant rumors keep flying. A war of words even. A bunch of people saying different stuff. Could he stay? Is he for sure gone? Is the lead contender for him even real? We'll break it all down next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon, Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Monday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We got lots of KD rumors to sift through and new details on Bol Bol's benching. Joining me, as always, from the wonderful West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling on this Sunday evening, Ben Garcia?
I'm doing good. The Lakers are down 0-1. And one thing I just want to say is, it's not so easy, huh? It's not so easy playing the Timberwolves in the first round. And then the other thing was, man, the Thunder are so lucky they didn't see the Suns. They're so lucky the Suns didn't make the playoffs. I mean, listen, the Suns would have kept it within 51 points, I think.
Yeah,
so
true. There you go. We'll never have to see which one of us would have ended up on the right side of that, but I think people can make their own conclusions. Let's get to it, though. Kevin Durant, because a lot of reporting is flying, as I said, and it's leverage season. It is leak season. It is silly season, whatever you want to call it. That is what the summer is all about in the NBA. But Chris Haynes is not one to necessarily dive into all that nonsense. And he reported in a video on his YouTube channel on Friday that the Suns very well could look to their new coach, whoever that might be, and I would assume whoever some new executives that they may hire might be, and allow the input of the vision and the identity and the stuff that we've been hearing a lot from the Suns about lately. If that includes Kevin Durant, according to Chris Haynes, there is a pathway to potentially him sticking around. What did you think when you heard that about a guy who we've been treating, and I think most Suns fans, Ben, have been treating as basically gone?
Well, to be fair, in Chris Haynes' video, he had literally prefaced it with, it is very likely Kevin Durant is gone. Yeah. But he had also mentioned as well that if Chauncey Billups would have walked out, that potentially if the Suns would have gotten him, that probably would have swayed Kevin Durant to stay. And it was interesting to think of, because I'm like, it feels like what he's alluding to is they would have to hire the coach that like Kevin Durant wants. Like, not just has a relationship with him, but like almost he's going to handpick the guy, which I don't love either. But at the end of the day, it felt like leverage from the Suns side, like maybe trying to, hey, who knows? The Suns at their press conference didn't necessarily rule out Kevin Durant was gone. They said that things need to change in the roster, but they're not acting like Kevin Durant has gone out in the public like everyone else is. So it felt a little bit like leverage from their side, but also it felt like, man, he also mentioned as well, the Willie Green is another guy that could have saved Kevin Durant from going somewhere else. It seems like those two things potentially have kind of already had the door shut on them. But to me, it felt like leverage, at least from the Suns side, not telling every other team like, hey, yep, well, he's gone. We're open for business. It felt like open up the check pocket just a little bit. What about you?
Which is the smart thing to do, right? Because if you allow the reports to snowball so much where the whole league knows he's gone, and they might already feel that way. I would think they probably do, but it's smart for the Suns to at least try to trickle and sprinkle some doubt on that as much as they can, just to say, you're not going to just fleece us, right? Like, maybe that's where this is headed, but we're not just going to, lay on the ground and let him walk away and you give us some chump change back. And I think that's smart. But As for the coaching thing, like specifically, I think that part of it felt like, because of what you said, right? That those guys are already accounted for. They're most likely sticking around on the franchises that they're employed by already. That felt like maybe Chris Haynes heard that when those situations were uncertain, and then he's kind of like extrapolating that forward. Hey, maybe another situation could come up that might present itself that would encourage Durant to want to stay. I'm hesitant to believe that a coach in particular would really do that, because I don't buy into the like nonsense of coach killer or anything like with KD or any player personally. I just don't really think that's how these things work. But I also don't think Kevin Durant is a guy where who the coach is like A1 on his list of priorities, right? So it just doesn't feel like that's going to be the thing that would change this. I think Kevin Durant is gone. This didn't affect my thinking there. But one part of it that I think is maybe a good thing to hear for Suns fans is it continues to feel like Matt Ishbia and this front office, they're inviting back their feedback, right? They're saying, hey, we're not opposed to if somebody comes in and really dazzles us with this vision of how to fix this thing around Kevin Durant. We're not ruling, we'll consider it. And I like to hear that, at least from what this rest of this offseason could look like.
Well, from years prior, it was, okay, Vogel's gone, Budenholzer's our guy. All right, we struck out on Nick Nurse, and I forgot who it was also the year before. Oh, Doc Rivers was in that category of front runners for the Suns head coaching job, and they ended up getting Frank Vogel. It feels like at least they're open to trying new opportunities when it comes to fixing the Suns team. But I'm with you, man. If you and I are just digesting, like, are we thinking Kevin Durant is any less gone? No. But I think the Suns are reading the tea leaves as well, and I'm sure we'll get into this more of like what players could come back and really dive into Kevin Durant trades. But like what we've seen is maybe we should accustom ourselves into getting less, not more, maybe in terms of players or maybe in terms of picks. And the Suns are saying, hey, listen, that might be true, but we're not just going to roll over and just give you Kevin Durant, because we have our own issues as well, and we are not in the business of just trying to help you out. So I would agree with you in that, man. It still feels like he is 1,000% gone. It felt kind of weird. You know what's funny? Like, I would have been really excited about Chauncey Billups or Willie Green, but I would not have been excited about either of them if it meant Kevin Durant was going to stay. Not because Durant is the problem, but the Suns have one way out of this. Who even knows if they have? Really, the one way it could be out of this is trading both guys. But they're going to explore the halfway out of this of maybe we can just get rid of Kevin Durant, nail our draft picks, done and so figure it out. But I would not have want to run it back again. Not because it's his fault, but the Suns need to find a different way out of this. And it ain't running it back with what they did. So yeah, I'm kind of happy now that they might miss out on those guys or miss out on Willie Green.
Sure. It's what I've said throughout this to try to explain to maybe fans who still are on the fence about the Durant side of it or anything. It's like you can't look yourself in the face and tell yourself that switching Mike Budenholzer for Willie Green is the difference. This team was 36-46. It's just so far off, and that's why we're where we are. Those guys wouldn't have made me change my mind on any of that.
Brendon, just really quickly, this wasn't in like the prep and stuff like that, but how could there be people out there still that are pro keeping?
I mean, I'm not sure there are, to be honest. I'm not sure anybody really thinks they should keep KD anymore. So even as I was saying that, I'm like, is that even a real thing?
Okay.
Do you think it is?
Wouldn't say, I'd say there's 15% of the Suns' diehard fan base that actually watch basketball every single day, love the team, that really think they can retool this roster around Booker and Durant, and it can be an actual, not even contender, a playoff team, and especially in the Western Conference. So I would love to hear people's reasoning for why, but trading, you could put prime Phil Jackson on this team. It's not the difference. Like, it's not going to change anything.
The coach wasn't the
No.
biggest problem. So how could it be the solution, right?
No.
All right, let's get to the other game being played in the media where Shams Charania, even John Gambadoro here locally, appear to believe that the Houston Rockets are, if not at the top of the list, very, very close to the top of the suitors for Kevin Durant, where another corner of the media is saying they're not even interested at all. We'll get there next. First, today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, you know what time it is. Playoff season means big performances and even bigger rewards. DoorDash is bringing the heat with a slam dunk deal for Dash Pass members throughout the 2025 NBA playoffs. It's called They Swoosh, You Score. And what it means is that anytime a player drops 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members score a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day. Just place an order of $20 or more, use the code WINGSTOP50 at checkout, and that combo is yours. Crispy, delicious, and totally free. Offer valid noon to midnight the day after the game. Terms apply. I don't know who the first guy to score 50 in this playoffs is going to be. I mean, I guess you could go Luka. I guess you could go Ant, maybe Jokic, maybe one of the New York guys. But when they do, you know where to go. DoorDash. Sign up for DoorDash. Sign up for Dash Pass to unlock this and more exclusive deals all season long. When any player scores 50 plus in a playoff game, Dash Pass members get a free 3-piece crispy tenders combo from Wingstop the very next day with a $20+ order and code WINGSTOP50 at checkout. That's Dash Pass, your door to more savings, more flavor, and more ways to win. Terms apply. All right, let's keep it rolling here, Ben. Don't forget to sign up for the Locked On Suns daily newsletter, guys, if you have not already. All the news is flying, as we keep saying, and that is the best place to get all of it about the Suns and the NBA in one place, straight to your email for free, and it supports us big time. Okay, so one of the other things that you and I have been keeping track of, Ben, is this reporting from Mark Stein and Jake Fisher, where they are pretty insistent, I would even say, that the Rockets are actually not interested in Durant. So if you flash back to just like a week ago, we did a big episode. Hey, this is probably the front runner. This is the team that appears to be most determined, and the fit of it could make sense considering what they need on that roster, which is a go-to scorer. But Mark Stein said all season long, we've been reporting that the Rockets' next significant trade would not happen in season. Okay, that was true. And is unlikely to target Kevin Durant because the future Hall of Famer is not on the same timeline as Houston's promising young core. Jake Fisher said it's even less likely than previously thought, kind of adding into that. Those two guys write together at the newsletter that they run. This feels even more like leverage than the last thing to me, Ben. This is, if the Suns are going to put out there, hey, we might keep him, you're going to have to up your asking price because he's not for sure gone. This feels like the Rockets almost like in real time responding and saying, well, then we don't need him. Who cares? You know what I mean? It's already happening. All of the mental tricks are already happening.
Well, let's just play it like this. Why would they want him right now? Like I'm sure that's what those guys were told right now. They're the second seed. They haven't played a singular playoff game since we've been recording this. So, yeah, why would they want to break up their core? But if the Golden State Warriors beat them in the first round, yeah, they're going to want to shake some things up. And this idea that I've seen from Rockets fans too, probably not the most rash Rockets fans, but it's like, we'll just go after Giannis, or we'll just go after, I'm like, what? Well, you're just going to go with Giannis now? That's your pivot point? Everyone would go do that then. And you're still going to give up your biggest assets. So,
well, so then what? But is that
no?
That would back up this reporting, though.
If for now, like I do think for now, the Rockets. Why would they want? Why would they be focused on Durant?
No, I'm saying the idea of another guy who could become available being a higher priority. I think that that's something we haven't necessarily addressed as we've been talking about the idea of KD being gone. Is that it doesn't happen in a vacuum. And so I do think you are hearing Giannis's name come up if you watch NBA shows or listen to podcasts or read articles from people who know this stuff. he could be gone. And of course he'd be a higher priority for every single team in the whole entire league than Durant would be, right? So I think that could be something that actually makes sense to kind of combine the two sides of this, where you hear some people saying the Rockets are expected to pursue Durant and other people saying they aren't. I do think maybe, hey, we're waiting on a bigger fish. That could be the reason.
Cool. It doesn't. Well, okay, fine. Let's say that happens. Let's say Giannis becomes available and they don't get him either. They're going to have to pivot to someone. That happens every year. So I don't think that Durant is their first priority. Probably not. But depending on the asking price, he might be. And depending on the circumstances that change, they will get in the running as well. We've seen Gamble say there's 4 teams right now that he knows are interested. But he also has said that he expects more teams to jump in the running. But we don't know. Maybe some teams drop out. I mean, the Timberwolves are up 1-0 on the Lakers right now. There's so much that can change that I do agree that's probably what they were told right now. But don't try to lie to me that the Rockets don't want Kevin Durant or they're not interested. That's where I think it does get a little silly. Like, sure, of course you're interested. It just depends on the price, like everything. So that I think it just feels like leverage as well.
I agree with you 100% on the Rockets side, as I said, to start things off. I guess to kind of combine that into a bigger conversation, I think some of the case you could make for why Houston might not be interested, which is his age, which is the fact that other teams are, that other players, Giannis mainly, but other players too, could become available. I think those are realistic things that we have to be we have to be realistic about them when we're talking about what the Suns are ultimately going to get back for KD. I think that is, if you were to say, fast forward 3 months and they didn't get as much as we thought, those 2 reasons would be big parts of why. And so I think you got to take that seriously.
My rebuttal to that also would be, okay, fine. People are going to become available. It happens every year in the offseason. Not a huge fish every year becomes available like Giannis, but let's say he does. You're gonna gut your roster for Giannis. You're gonna gut Amen Thompson and whatever. Maybe Şengün. I don't know. Like, you want to do that, or do you want to give half as much and more picks for KD?
Every team would prefer to gut their roster for Giannis than to trade for KD.
After watching the Suns, you think so? I think the Suns are the poster child of maybe you shouldn't gut your roster.
Oh! I thought you meant because of KD's play.
No, not KD.
I get you. Yeah, how much they had to give up and how little they had left once they got Durant on the team. Well, yeah, I still think it's Giannis. I mean, he's been top 5 MVP like his entire career.
I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying that you're gonna have to give up a lot to give him. You're talking Amen Thompson. You're talking Jabari. You're talking the Suns picks, yours picks. You're talking a bigger package potentially than what Kevin Durant was, because Kevin Durant was a 34-year-old who got traded at that point. And they got 3 forwards, 4 first-rounders, pick swap, and 3 pick swaps. So I think Kevin Durant can become appetizing once you realize you won't have to give up as much. And that's where Jabari, 2 firsts, and a salary cap filler comes in. Which, for some reason, I don't know why that keeps on seem like that's a crazy ask. I mean, I know he's 38 years old, but he just came off another season where he should have been all-NBA caliber.
36, yeah.
Whatever.
I don't, it's not like I don't get what you're saying, but I just think we've never really seen a team look at that and go, we could have gotten a better player, but we actually didn't want to because we wanted to keep
the players
this one asset. You know, that's typically, if you're the team that's the most desperate, the biggest, like the Suns were with Durant, right? Like, it was very obvious because they had come up short a couple of different times and they had the package that they could go out and do a big trade like that. They went out and did it. You know, they didn't go for John Collins once it realized they could get KD. I know that's not apples to apples. Of course, KD's a much better backup plan than John Collins, goes without saying. But yeah, I don't know. I guess the big picture though here is, like, don't be surprised if you hear more of this, and we are going to hear more of this type of leveraging, and it doesn't necessarily it might not end up proving out to be true. And it isn't even necessarily true in that moment, but it's all about trying to kind of play the game. And we just got to keep our eye on the ball a little bit. And that's obviously why we do this podcast, for people to understand all this craziness. But this one doesn't sway me. I'm still assuming the Rockets will be very, very much in play for KD, regardless of all the other stuff we've kind of been talking about.
There are no shade to reporters, no shade to Stein and Fisher. I'm sure they get a lot of things right. But we all have our biases towards some reporters, and I have a bias towards Gambo's Arizona reporting, and I have a bias to guys like Shams' reporting, and both guys have said Houston's interested. So I'm just going to side with that. And Rockets fans can side with Fisher and Stein. It's just the way I'm going to feel, and I'm with you. It doesn't sway me that much.
All right. Back to Chris Haynes and the reporting that he did on the end of the Suns season and some of the things that went wrong along the way and changes that could come. He gave us a little bit more information on Bol Bol and why he suddenly dropped out of the rotation and what his future might be. We'll dive into that next. First, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. Whether it is a simple money line, maybe a point spread, a parlay, props are always fun. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you make a $5 bet and you win it. So I like in baseball, like the first 5 innings stuff can be kind of fun because it's like just when the starting pitchers are in there. What do we have on Monday? Any big money lines for baseball? It can be kind of tough. You got the Red Sox hosting the White Sox minus 270 with Walker Buehler on the mound. That's the best odds you're getting for baseball. I would never recommend to go basketball if you're trying to get an easy win. It's the playoffs, guys. But there's a lot out there. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com, check all of it out across the world of sports, and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. All right, let's keep it. Well, let's close it out, Ben. Chris Haynes. There was a hilarious video clip of a game in his YouTube upload about the Suns, where basically, to sum it up, he reported that the game between Houston and Phoenix, where Mason Plumlee and Steven Adams got into it, and people will remember that Plumlee got ejected in that game. You zoom out while the skirmish is going on, and rather than running up and helping Plumlee out, or even maybe trying to tangle up with some of the Rockets players or whatever, Bol Bol's doing what guys will be doing like during pregame layup lines. Just up and in, catch. Up and in, catch. He's also 7 feet tall, so that's very easy for him. Like a Mikan drill, like if people know that.
Yeah,
it's almost like
drill,
legit what he was doing. Couldn't have been less bothered by the whole entire brawl that was going on, where apparently Bud was so bothered by that he actually removed him from the rotation as a result of his unbothered mindset during that whole thing.
Did you ever see that angle? I've never seen that angle of the fight.
I may have seen it, but I definitely didn't notice Bol. I did not zero in on him at all.
So personally, I think just from this, nothing makes sense with what Coach Bud was doing, but I'm just going to isolate this one incident. It does feel kind of like pick on Coach Budenholzer day, where you're just kind of finding little things he did wrong and poking fun at him for it. This one, I'm not necessarily going to get super angry with Budenholzer, because there is a certain competitive edge that I want my players to have. I don't need to have him go in there and punch someone in the face, but I would like to see him go in there and just pull someone off, or try to break up the fight. You don't need to escalate without protecting your guys. And there is something in that would piss me off, but it's not a full season benching. It's we're going to cut your minutes for next game. It's a very I get being upset about it because you want your guys to have each other's backs, but come on. Like it does kind of fit Bol, who does kind of march to the beat of his own drum, and it seems kind of like a little bit more of a laid back guy. That was my take on it. I'll tell you, I mean, I'm more curious about how this potentially affects Bol in the future if he wants to come back to the Suns. I know the Suns can offer him more money, and that's more what I'm worried about. But like, what was your take on this? It kind of feels like just let's hate on Mike Budenholzer.
Punching bag for sure, but I do think that there's something to be said for what was that? I think March 12th. Is that right? I think that's what he said. And whatever point it was, after like the halfway point or if not earlier of the season, this team should have been so dead set on scraping every single win together that they possibly could, that Bol Bol could moon the team after a practice and I wouldn't care. Right? Like, come on. I don't care if he's... Yeah, it's a bad look. Yes, it would be nice if he was so fired up to go after and be part of that. But if you thought he was helping you win before, then you should think he was going to help you win after. That didn't change anything. And it's not exactly like everybody else was so connected and one unit as a team, and Bol was the only guy that was like doing his own thing. This team was never connected. So at that point, play the best player. It reminds me of, not because the reason, as far as we know, was similar, but that Clippers game where Colin Gillespie was part of the big fourth quarter comeback, and then the next game, he's not even playing. It's like, how are you making rotation decisions if it's not based on who's actually playing well? Because that should be what it's about.
Sorry, I was gonna say, and that's like the point of what I said right at the beginning is like nothing Bud did made any sense. Like, no. You're gonna get mad at him for that.
I think it is interesting to think about what like this could mean for him in the future, because both seasons that he's been here now, he took a while to get into the rotation. And if you remember back to last season with Vogel, he also wasn't in the playoff rotation. He made it through the regular season playing pretty well, but I think, rotations shorten in the postseason. I get that, but I think Bud must have just thought, if he's having to guard Cat or Reed or whatever, Vogel, it's just not going to be a good fit. And so he just didn't play him. And that means both seasons he started late and he didn't make it to the end in the rotation. Yeah. But Chris Haynes did point out that, other rival coaches do still have a little bit of intrigue about his potential. He's still only 25. He's raw still, and he was kind of a late bloomer. He had a lot of injuries throughout high school and college, so he just doesn't have a lot of basketball under his belt. And it does make me wonder if we're talking about a Suns team next season where there's less of a my way or the highway type of coach and more of an innovator and a tactician and a kind of more progressive mind, I think we would say, as far as the scheme goes, that we could see that guy be more intrigued to actually deploy Bol in unique ways and not be so bothered by some of the personal stuff and personality stuff that has clearly rubbed Vogel and Bud the wrong way, because those guys are more of an old school type of coach. So I guess it could go either way. It could go either way. He could be tired of this whole situation and go to a team that wants him more, or the Suns could just become a team that wants him more because the decision makers change over.
I'm starting to pick up all these different aprons and bird rights. Clearly, he said kind of facetiously, but the Suns can offer him more money next year. So that's my point of like, I do believe he'll be on this team next year strictly for that reason, because now with 2 years under a minimum contract, they should have his bird rights. So I think he'll just go to the highest bidder and the Suns can do that. But it does worry me a little bit that he has had some issues in the development with the Suns that he might not want to be here next year. And he does need to be here. The Suns need younger guys, especially a bigger player like Bol, to come and play those roles. Does it worry you at all that maybe this could affect him not being here next season?
I mean, worry, like, I'm not the type of person that's sitting here thinking he has some, Wemby-like potential. I think people who say that kind of stuff are goofy. But I do think that, I know by the end of the season, we were like, it honestly doesn't even matter if Bol's out there. Like, how can we really try to make the case that that's making a difference? And it wouldn't have. This team did not have it. They quit by the end. They were done. Bud was a disaster. Like, all that stuff's true. So, but I still would have wanted to see him. I just think this is the type of player you should be investing resources. If you're going to have him on the roster, you should be wanting to give him reps. And he's not so bad that he kills you and he can't be worthy of an 8th, 9th, 10th rotation spot. So I'd be glad to see him. And I think he does have a higher ceiling than he's shown, and he probably has a higher floor than he's shown. Like, I think if he can just consistently not make the kind of boneheaded mistakes out there with shot selection and defensive rotations and things like that, then he could be a guy I could see being a playoff rotation player over time. As far as the money goes, they have his early bird rights. So just to refresh people on what that means, that is because they've had him for 2 seasons. This is basically the Josh Okogie thing. They can give him 175% of his salary from this year, which was $2.1 million. So if you roughly just kind of cut that up, it's like they could give him like $3.5–4 million. And we'll see if they do that. But it's more than anyone else could offer. And I mean, you agree, right? There's untapped potential still, even if he's not going to be some kind of killer.
Yeah, I went from tapping the brakes on Bol Bol to there's definitely something there to, I think, where you think he can be a solid 8th, 9th man on this roster, probably 8, closer to 8 than 9. 20 minutes a night would suit him, and the Suns need that guy. The Suns just they're not in any space to be shooing away any guy that has any potential, much less whether it's more or less than you think. Like, just bring him here, especially if you can just overpay him a little bit to have him stay here. So, and I do think other teams might give him that deal to come and play for them.
Yeah, that's I think if we're kind of projecting it out, the taxpayer mid-level is more than that. So even a team paying the tax could just give him their exception on that. And, maybe there's not a lot of contending teams that want to waste the roster spot on a guy who may or may not end up, cutting it. But yeah, I don't think the Suns aren't going to win every bidding war for Bol Bol. But I guess the last thing I would say is I say all that, but at the same time, I'm also not promising him a roster spot in favor of another guy. Like, if there's another young wing or something that maybe they could bring in, I'm not going to be precious and insist on keeping Bol. But I think if they can keep him and he takes the money, I'd like to see what he could do. That'll wrap us up. Hit follow or subscribe if you have not already. We will be back for you throughout the week as the reports continue. We'll keep an eye on the playoffs. We'll keep an eye on what doesn't happen, what goes wrong in the playoffs. Maybe that can end up helping the Suns. So keep it right here, and we'll talk to you then.